But we head out right now on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. He's the manager of your Atlanta Braves, Brian Snitker. Nice enough to join us this morning. Snit, good morning. Thanks for waking up and coming on here in the ATL.
Oh, no. Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Really got to feel awesome to get back to, and I say this kind of cautiously, some sense of normalcy getting into spring training after everything you went through last year. How much different does it feel now than it did when you guys restarted the season and ran through that 60-game sprint?
Well, I think we're more in tune with what's ahead of us. I mean, when we went in with the protocols, the mask wearing, staggering workouts, things like that, I mean, it's not such a shock to the system because we did survive the 60 games and the playoffs. So there's still protocols that's still way different than a normal spring training, but I applaud the guys. They've so far done a great job. Staff's done a great job, and it's just kind of some new normals that we're having to deal with.
Hate to go back and bring up old stuff, but 3-1 series lead in the NLCS. We were all excited thinking we're going to the World Series. How much during the offseason did you go back and rewatch those final 3 games, if at all?
I didn't. I mean, I was the same way. I mean, I was, I think what it shows you is how hard it is to win a major league game because we were up 3-1 and, it's like you feel you got to win one game and it's harder than what it sounds. And, but I didn't go back and watch. I was there. I knew what happened and I'm proud of our guys through the accomplishments that we've done, the progress we've made. And I think that's just going to fuel us even more going into this year.
Manager of the Atlanta Braves, Brian Snitker, joins us on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Snit, I was thinking about what all the players do getting ready for spring training. They're working out, they're eating right, they're conditioning. As a manager throughout the course of the offseason, what do you do year in and year out to try to make yourself a better manager?
I think that's kind of a progression and something that just happens with being here. I mean, I'm not the same guy as I was a year ago, and you never stop learning in this game. I think you can ask players that you've never figured this game out. That's the beauty of it. That's what keeps us all coming back. That this thing is just it's so complicated, and there's so many layers to it that you're always looking to better yourself. And I'm no different. I mean, whether it's running a game, handling a player, situations, whatever, it's still, I mean, I roll over in bed in the off season and, I'm using the iPhone notes now better than I ever did. If if something comes to my mind, I can put that on there and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's an ongoing process. And like I say, I think it's what keeps us all coming back.
You got a full squad workout tomorrow, I believe, first one of the spring training.
Right.
What does that entail? What does it look like out there? I've been out there to those fields. It's so spacious. You got room everywhere. Northport that facility is ridiculous. Talk to the listener about what they expect for the players out there tomorrow.
Yeah, you're right. It is ridiculous here. Some of the guys will start showing up today. They have their physicals. It's good to see some of them from a distance yesterday as they had to come in and test and that's the one thing about this. We're in in this situation, in these times, we're in the perfect spot right here. They did an unbelievable job in this place. It's gorgeous. We can spread guys out, and there's like seven full fields, 2 half fields, 20 pitching mounds, 2 huge sets of cages. It's the perfect place to have, especially in this pandemic area when we're trying to keep everybody distanced. We got tons of clubhouses. Probably the biggest thing that we deal with is the eating and spreading them all out. They have to eat outside, which gets a little rough when it's 50 degrees out in the morning and you're trying to eat breakfast. So, but it'll be good. It's going to be great to get everybody back. We'll have 2 separate workouts. We'll get the pitchers out of here at 10 o'clock. I'll address the whole club, pitchers and the position players. And even for that, we have this huge auditorium that they built in the dorms, but we can't use it because it's too many people to put in there and not spread them out. So we're going to put them in the seating bowl and use the big screen on the stadium in order for me to do that meeting.
Oh, that's crazy. That is crazy. That auditorium is humongous, by the way. It's nuts.
It is. No, it's nuts. But it's just like you have to be spread out. And even with with 70 players, 65 players we have and all the staff, it's too many people to even put in there for, an hour to do a meeting. Because if one of those guys something happened, God forbid they test positive, then you contact trace, you're going to lose your whole organization.
Right. Braves manager Brian Snitker with us here on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Snit, you talked about changing and evolving as a manager, and the game continues to change. One of the big offseason stories is the way that the analytics is really, driving the way managers manage with starting pitchers. Do you go with your analytics guy, or is that more a by feel on a day-by-day basis on how long to keep a guy in or potentially pull a starter?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I don't. I mean, like I said, I do. I don't. Analytics is information, and it's good information. Thank God here with Alex and his staff, they do anything and everything to try and help these guys get better. If a player has a question, they can go to the analytics guys, and they'll figure it out for them. They'll get them the information. But once the game starts, I think you still got to go by your gut. And I see there's teams out there that you can tell they don't. It's scripted. It's kind of like having a playbook in football, and they go with it regardless. But we kind of hear you use that information, and I think it's good information as the different things. But still, I think you got to trust your eyes and your gut over the long term when you're dealing with these guys.
The analytics for Marcell Ozuna were not great in the field a year ago. Obviously, now with the designated hitter not going to be in play in the National League, he's going to have to play a lot in the outfield. What have you seen him work on? How confident are you for Marcell to be out there for 140-plus games in left field?
Well, you know what? He DH'd the entire season. I don't know how many, maybe 17 games or something he played in left field, mainly against left-handers. I remember just get some matchups. But he worked his tail off last year. I mean, I got my hats off to him. I mean, he was out there every day with the Marlowe Hale, working on his throwing, working on, the jumps, the footwork, the whole thing. And this guy was a Gold Glover not too long ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's had some injuries to his shoulder. He's maturing as a man and all, but he is, if it won't be for lack of work, I'll tell you that. He came in camp yesterday. I saw him, got to talk to him. He's in great shape. He's willing to work, to put the work in, and I think there we go back to analytics. I think in our analytics and where we position guys, we'll do everything to try and maximize what he has going on defensively.
Whether it's football or basketball or baseball, there's always position battles when you start the offseason and start getting into the season, spring training camp, whatever. The catcher spot, the backup catcher spot behind Travis d'Arnaud. We saw Alex Jackson and Contreras a little bit last year. Is that going to be one of those battles you'll keep a close eye on?
Yeah. I mean, and I told the guys, if you don't have if the back of your baseball card isn't big yet, and these guys don't have a baseball card, so we're going to evaluate what we do here. I think the good thing, and I've told guys the last couple of years, is when I first took this job and I came to spring training, we were putting signs on the interstate to try and get guys to come in here, kind of work for playing time type things. Now, as we've gotten stronger and we've gotten deeper, there's less holes to fill every year, and that's a good thing. There'll be some competition in the bullpen. There always is. There's always going to be some sort of competition. You never know where that guy. Because I tell the guys, we're going to take the best 26 guys to help us win. Whether it's a guy from A-ball, as we've seen in the past when Rafael Furcal was my shortstop in Myrtle Beach, and then the next year in this situation he was the starting shortstop for the Atlanta Braves. So. You just never know where those guys may come from. These guys are closer than they think, and that's why we're going to do this spring training and why we do need all these games.
Brave skipper Brian Snitker, our guest on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line.
Yeah, and, Brian, you just kind of fed right into something that I find interesting about the roster makeup this year. I like that line you had the other day of having the sign next to the freeway, but for you guys to be able to possibly rely on a Jason Kipnis, even a Pablo Sandoval, and maybe even Jake Lamb if everything goes according to plan with him. Just how much of a benefit is that, not only for you, peace of mind that you might have with the lineup card, but just also for the guys as well to know that they've got those guys behind them, backing them up, and giving them that experience that they've been able to accomplish?
Well, all three of those guys bring instant credibility. They've all been very successful major leaguers. A guy like Pablo's got a jewelry box full of rings, and Jason Kipnis is a quality major leaguer. And I've always liked Jake Lamb from, playing against him. So it's good when you have those kind of guys and you can plug them in and use their versatility, their experience, especially if the pitchers are going to hit. You're going to need some guys coming off the bench in big situations to hit, and guys like that have been through the wars, and it's not gonna, the situation's not gonna overwhelm them. And you just never know what might happen over the course of a spring training side, and especially, we've got some of our young players that lost a whole year last year, which is probably the biggest thing, the detriment that came out of this whole thing, is there was no minor leagues, and we had some young players that really needed that time in those games, so they're kind of a year behind right now. So we're gonna need guys like that have the major league experience to come in, and buffer that until these guys get some more experience.
Snit, in full disclosure, I'm the most injured person in sports talk radio. I've torn both my Achilles, so I ask about Mike Soroka, knowing what he's going through. I heard last week when you guys spoke and how he's ahead of the program and how this next month is going to be huge. How cautious are you approaching Mike Soroka, even him being a young guy wanting to get back out there?
Yeah, I think we're going to do the smart thing. I have every amount of trust in our medical staff and what they're putting him through, and they're checking boxes off, and they're not going to rush him. I think Mike's aware he wants to get back. He's a young, strong kid that's very competitive and all. But in talking to him, had an in-depth conversation with him. He's realistic about this whole thing. He's not going to go out and jeopardize anything for him or the team or anything like that. But you're right, he's coming along great. Like I say, he's a very dedicated young man. He's not going to miss anything in his rehab, and our medical team is awesome. They are really talented and very well-versed group, so they're going to do everything they can to get this kid back, and we'll just see where it goes.
Snit, we had a conversation earlier in the show this morning about having guys come into spring training or into the clubhouse, former Hall of Famers that have played for the Braves, whether that's Glavine or Smoltz or, Chipper Jones, who's going to be a hitting coach now. Talk a little bit about what it means to have Chipper there. And then I mentioned the fact that sometimes when I had former guys come into Atlanta Falcons facilities, there's an intimidation factor and you're reluctant to reach out to those guys. Do you talk to your young players about tapping into that knowledge?
Absolutely. I just got done with chatting with Chipper. He's here. He's ready to go to work. And like I told him originally, it's like I've been trying for years to get him to be more involved. He's going to bring, again, you talk about instant credibility and a passion for the game and knowledge. And, this guy's a hitting savant. And he's going to be awesome for all of our players, the young, old, whoever. And I, personally, I reach out to some of our guys and have them talk to our players, because I think we'd be remiss if we don't use the experience. Because you look at, guys like Chipper, Glav, Smoltz, all those kind of guys, they've all been through this, and they've had to work their tail off, and they've had to do things, and it just wasn't handed to those guys either. They've had to put the time in. So I use those guys with our young players and the experiences they have, and when they're around, I encourage our young players to nuzzle up to these guys and get to know them and ask them questions, as do our young players do our veteran guy like Charlie Morton that we bring in. Again, that's, the guy's probably, next to John Smoltz, one of the most accomplished postseason pitchers that's out there in our generation. But to use guys like that, to talk to them about what they're thinking. It's like I always encourage our players to use what's in your room.
A few more minutes with Brian Snitker, Braves skipper here on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. How much more confidence does a guy like Ian Anderson bring into spring training after the amazing run that he had down the stretch last year?
Yeah, he can't help but do that. Because I guarantee you when Ian came up here and he made that first start, he wasn't real sure. He probably thought he knew what he was getting into, but he didn't. And how he handled himself and what he went through. He pitched a game 7, in an NLCS, and he got to start that game, and he spent the whole day before and that night and morning and everything getting ready for it. And I look at Ian Anderson, but you go back and look, and this kid had over 300 innings in the minor leagues, and he was ready for this. And but all those young guys and what they experienced, Bryce Wilson, Christian Pache, Austin Riley, all those young guys, everything that they experienced last year is going to do nothing but stoke that fire for this year and give them more confidence.
I think of somebody like Tyler Matzik as well. Tyler Matzik comes off, I don't want to say the scrap heap, but sort of, and then just becomes great down the stretch. What does that do for your bullpen? I know, obviously, Melanson moving on. Shane Green's still a free agent, not signed with the ball club. How do you plan to attack the bullpen early in the season?
Well, I mentioned that earlier in one of the shows I did that, a year ago today, Tyler Masick wasn't in this camp. I mean, he was a fence jumper, and he came over, and all he did was strike guys out. And it's like we just kept wanting to see more and more of him. And honestly, he wasn't even on our original list in that second spring training. And I remember I talked to Alex, and it's like, what about that lefty who was striking everybody out? He became arguably maybe one of our most valuable pitchers out of the bullpen. So, and you know what? There'll be somebody else in this bullpen and in this camp that we're not even thinking about that's going to get an opportunity and do something really special. So, and I think, too, and you look at Major League bullpens, it's hard. That's the one thing, probably the most fluid area of any Major League team is you never really see, 5 or 6 guys staying together year in and year out in a Major League bullpen. It's just something that you constantly are running guys in and out, and you never know who's going to be that guy. But I'm confident in what we got in camp right now. Alex may go out and sign somebody, but I love who we got in the camp right now to go to war with.
I think I can speak for most of Braves Nation and talk about you and the passion and emotion and effort and energy put into this ball club and how much you got these guys back. We love the things you do. The way you said going into, was it 2 years ago, we're going to kick that mother bleeper in and everything else, and we were fired up and ready to fight for you. Do you mention World Series in your first meeting with a full team squad when you get into this thing? That's a goal in mind.
Yeah, well, you know what, Finn? The first goal is to win the division. Until you win the division, you don't put yourself in a chance to go to the World Series. I don't know that I have to mention the World Series to these guys. I guarantee you ask them to a man, and that's the ultimate goal, is because we know that how capable we were, and it doesn't always happen. Like I say, until you win the division and get your foot in the door, nothing can happen. So I think that's the first box that you want to check off. But I think to a guy in there, we thought that we had the team and the ability to go all the way last year. Didn't work out. Didn't happen. Like I say, we couldn't win one more game. That's baseball. But, I'm not so, I'd be losing a lot of money if I said these guys in there that wasn't their ultimate goal this year.
Snit, I know for us, we are looking forward to the regular season maybe as much as any in a long time. You've got us fired up this morning. Best of luck. I know we'll talk to you a bunch throughout the season. Thanks for coming on this morning, and we are ready. I'll say it. We're ready for that World Series run.
Yeah, man, I am too, guys, and I appreciate you having me anytime.